Ben Holder.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ben Holder. I live at 1306 Oak Street in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm a candidate for District 1. And I got a problem. I got this letter from Pat Boswell saying that every request that a council candidate makes is passed on to other council candidates. And I didn't really think that was fair. I thought it was kind of silly, but I let it blow off. Me and Mr. Wood had a conversation about it, and I let it pass on. There's bigger things to do. However, on Sunday, I wanted to find out some information. I called the Watch Operations Center, which is the public information department of the Greensboro Police Department, and they release information to the public. And I called and asked a very simple question, and they refused to answer my question, so they didn't have it. So I'm very, persistent, and I said I need to talk to the Watch Operations Officer. Watch Operations Officer Lieutenant Franks called me back. He did give me the information that I wanted, but before he gave me the information that I wanted, we had a bit of a discussion. And in that discussion, he told me that if I asked for this being a city council candidate, then everybody else has to get it. And it was almost like he was saying I needed to, well, he did say I needed to go through Pat Boswell, which the North Carolina General Statute says all I need to do is ask the custodian of the record, and my record is supposed to be handed over to me in a reasonable amount of time. The reason I'm coming to y'all is to say, number one, you got to stop saying, or Pat Boswell or the city's got to stop saying they pass all the information around, because that's not true. I've asked for videos of every time I've spoke at city council meetings. Have y'all gotten your copies? My district council representative, Diane Bellamy Small, passed down something about civil nuisances after the last time I spoke about crack pipes. I didn't get it. Y'all all got it. So to say we give everybody the information that's requested from everybody, it's not true. It's a silly rule, and we need to either follow it, but I recommend just saying we don't. And it's not even a rule. It's not even written anywhere. It's something that somebody dreamed up to make the playing field level, but it's politics, man. The blind side, the surprise, and all that stuff is a very big part of American history and politics. And I mean, that would be like if some news organization requested something and then you give it to every other news organization. I mean, there's competition and there's scoops and there's information and there's work and all that stuff that goes into it, but the bottom line is they don't pass the information. I'm sure all of y'all have asked for stuff this week that I haven't gotten, or last week that I didn't get, but the rule says I'm getting it, but I'm really not getting it. So can I stop having to jump through these silly little hoops and listen to all these people talking about how I got to contact Pat Boswell and everything's got to be passed on and I can get public record without all that ridiculousness? And let's just follow the law. Please, can we do that?
Mr. Attorney, can you speak to why we do that and what the legalities are?
This was a process that Mr. Kitchen started when he was city manager here, and it has gone on ever since, to my knowledge. And the rule is, if you're an avowed council candidate and you have signed, you have filed the papers to become a candidate, then if you make a request, theoretically, and Mr. Holder's correct, because I know people are calling City Hall every day and getting answers when they're not spread around. But theoretically, if the request comes in, Ms. Boswell's supposed to get it, and she's supposed to pass it on to other candidates. The theory is that each candidate will be treated similarly and alike, and there won't be any, as Mr. Holder says, blindsiding. But that's the purpose of it. It's been going on for years, and of course you folks can stop it if you want to.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question?
Sure.
All the information that has been requested by candidates or anybody, does it have to be in writing, or is that a part of the rule?
No, ma'am.
Whether you ask verbally or through writing, everybody is still supposed to get this information.
Right.
Theoretically, yes, ma'am.
Theoretically. Yes, Mr. Perkins.
I think you've got an unenforceable policy. And, whether we're sitting council members or not, we're still candidates for the same office that folks that aren't sitting council members are. And we're asking questions all the time. We're getting information all the time. And I don't think you can be consistent to everyone in this, and I think your regulation is trying to make it easier to gather information and be fair to people, but we really don't have that situation where it's possible to get everything to everybody. And I think we just ought to do away with the system to ask Pat Boswell to disseminate information, and if someone's got a question, they need to have it answered.
I agree.
Mr. Wood, is any of this written? Because I know when we took
If it is, I'm not aware of it.
Right, because it's not written also
Yeah.
that any information goes through the manager's office or legal before we get it. And when I took orientation, I was under that impression. So, Robbie, if that's a motion, I'm going to second it.
That's a motion.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
Motion is to do away with the rule that, whatever the rule is.
Council will vote.
I have a question before we vote. Okay, does that also include not having someone to look at information that might be deemed as confidential? Because sometimes things have been asked for. Be careful what you, you're opening the gate that stuff might get asked for that is considered sensitive, confidential, and you have to have somebody to look at that information and make sure that it's not something that the general public or someone who is not in either personnel or something like that. So I think you need to put a few parameters around that thing instead of just totally flying the door open.
Well, may I say that when these requests come in, they will essentially come in as a public records request, although when I get a request from a council member, I don't really consider that a public records request unless it's denoted as such, because the management and the legal department have a responsibility to answer council's questions. But the regular public records procedure, which hopefully Ms. Bellingsmall gleans that out, should be effective for this type of request. We know it isn't always, obviously,
right.
But if it comes in as a public records request from a candidate, then it should be handled as such.
Well, then there is, that as you put it in that terminology, there is written procedures on public records requests, because if you recall, we asked the former city manager to tighten that up, and there was a series of studies on it, and I think we were even given information about that. So to say that there are no rules written or that there's nothing written, there is a whole procedure on public information requests. Because if you recall, Madam Mayor, part of the discussion was the cost that was happening around public requests, because some people were asking for such large volumes of stuff, because we were even, I think you ruled in on this, Terry, about when it was appropriate to charge for huge volumes of, you remember, okay, so this has been discussed. So I just think that before we just throw a motion out here, we might want to make sure that it doesn't fly in the face of either policies or procedures that we've already put in place.
Mr. Attorney, would this fly in the face?
Not in my opinion, no, ma'am.
I do think there needs to be a specific motion for the record.
I think so, too.
The motion would be that the council instruct the manager not to require candidates for the office of city council to have to go through Pat Boswell in order to obtain information from the city.
But wouldn't it also need to include that nothing needs to be forwarded to other candidates too? Because it's not happening. You can't send me a letter and say everything that you asked, Mr. Holder, and every other council candidate asked will be shared. Because it's not shared.
Going back to my original rationale, it's not an enforceable policy.
Right.
If you call someone at the city and they give you an answer and don't forward it to the other 32 people in the race,
and they don't,
then they've violated that policy. So there is no way to properly enforce this thing. So it can't be consistent. It shouldn't be a rule.
No, it's not. It's not. That in itself is not written. That's not written.
Yeah, for simplicity's sake, that this city does not have an information sharing policy with regard to candidacy. Yes, I think that's what Robbie, yeah.
Okay. It's been moved and second. Council will vote. And that passes 8-1. Eric Ginsberg.